So that just happened. Hello everyone. Welcome to Grab Your Torch with Caleb and Joel, with minus Caleb. He is off doing very cool study abroad stuff. So I get to solo this unbelievable episode. Um, Obviously I think we're all flabbergasted by what just happened, but I just want to say first, if you like our videos, please like and subscribe and comment. What are your thoughts on this episode for the people who've seen it? And I, I'm like pretty shocked by the tribal, but obviously I'll kind of run down through some like big points first. So we do get to see all the tribes beforehand. We get to see the aftermath of the Kevin vote out. We get to see Say and Mary have this like weird, interesting relationship that I'll probably talk a little more about during Tribal, but we see Mary running around for the idol, and we see Say like running with her while like Cedric and Justin are like just sitting around doing nothing. And it was a pretty cute scene. It was very reminiscent of like Tony or a bunch of other Survivor players who just run around. But I think it was a very cute scene to kind of establish like a main point of this episode. And overall, I would say that Green going into this with like we talked about it last episode, but it was very obvious they were going to go to tribal. Like Kevin was the only one to really give him a chance, but they voted him out. And this one was pretty equitable for the most part, actually. But we'll get to that in a second. Then we go to the Orange Tribe, which is just David, 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 and then a little bit of Kyle. We see David's like whole backstory, which he has like a very interesting one for like modern Survivor, where like modern Survivor is about the journey. It's about people like being one person, Survivor changing him to another, and that improving their lives.
Mhm.
David's like, hey, it's cool that I'm out here. It's cool that I have this opportunity, but I need the money. And it was, I hate to say it, it was a little humorous hearing Kyle's reaction to his backstory, which his backstory is that he is 38 or 39, and his girlfriend or wife, I think girlfriend, is like 32, and Dave is currently living in a trailer outside his dad's house, which obviously is not great. But Kyle's like, David tells Kyle this, and Kyle's like, "Oh, that's sick." And David's like, "You think that's sick? That's terrible." And we get to see the whole spiel of how David really wants the money so that his girlfriend could be a mother. And I think that's very sweet because we rarely see in Survivor that like people going off for the money. We got to see a little of that in season 43, but at the end of the day, it's really been about the journey. So seeing how he really wants to play well for the future and to have a family is a very interesting aspect that we haven't gotten to see much in Survivor of late. Um, then we kind of shift more um, later on to some game talk where we get to see Charity and Mitch really solidify that alliance that they have. And I think that was a pretty cool scene as well, where obviously they're together and we get a lot of focus on those two. Where I do think if they go to tribal or something, which they do go to a swap, so we'll see how that is. But I do think if they went to a tribal, there's a good shot that Kyle would have sided with them. But then we get that, and then they go out on the boat, and they Kyle and Mitch hilariously like tip over, and we get to see Mitch really talk some strategy, and Kyle's like, perfect. And Kyle gets to articulate his game. He gets to articulate that he is on one side with Chrissy and Camilla, and then on the other side with Charity and Mitch, with him and David being in the middle. But the show really portrays it as like Kyle's in the middle. He's the one in the middle, one making these bonds, the one with the idol. And I mean, there's a world where Kyle goes really far. He really is a solid Survivor player, especially after a really tough premiere. And so I'm rooting for the guy. I really like this tribe. I think the next one to go from this tribe, if I had to guess, would be Chrissy. We just don't see a lot of Chrissy. I don't know what her head's at. I assume she's just really committed to the four. And obviously, a lot of that's because they haven't gone to tribal. And we don't get to see those dynamics, but we do get to spend a lot of time with Charity and Mitch and David and Kyle and Camilla, but not Chrissy. So not looking great for her. But you never know. People have had worse edits on Survivor and gone on to win, so you never know. But then we get on to the big old purple tribe, which like just looking at them, it's like Survivor, what are we doing? Like okay, the they are so clearly bigger than everyone else. Like Joe is by himself humongous. And then you add like Shaheem and Eva, who are like three very strong individuals. And like obviously they describe it as those three are the jacked ones. The puzzle guys are Bianca and Thomas. And then Star is like whatever. But like Star's like I feel like pretty athletic. Like she doesn't do bad into challenges or anything. They're all great. So like obviously they weren't going to lose a tribal, but um moving on, we get to see a lot of dynamics of that tribe. We see that morale is low and Joe makes this big bonfire, try to boost up morale, and he like jokes with everyone, he's like ah ha ha like talking about making drinks and Thomas is just like playing into it. Shaheem talks about really highly of him being his number one, which is really cool. And um this is obviously very positive for Joe. I think in the general Survivor community, I think a lot of people are looking at Joe as the winner. I probably would be aligned with that. I would say he's top three at least. But then we get to see Eva make a little bracelet for Joe's daughter, which I think most of the tribe was already on to the fact that Joe and Eva were close. But this was like oh gosh, like this is like the excuse, where we've mentioned it 1,000 times, but Survivor is a game of excuses. And we see that like even in Cagayan, Tony, what he did, he needed to get LJ out. He made up an excuse by forcing LJ to say something, used it to take him out. And I think with Survivor, Eva's like doing that is like a very clear like way like excuse. And Eva is not exactly the best player. Obviously, she made a very good social connection with Joe, but she hasn't been really that tight with too many other people that we've seen. And I think Eva might be in a tougher spot, especially if she swapped away from Joe. If she swapped away from Joe, it could be really bad. But we see her talk to Star because she knows that Star has the advantage. And like obviously Eva has autism and she recognizes that like she's bad at picking up social cues. And so she was trying her best. And I think she like approached it probably the right way. She definitely did bluntly. Like she was like, so did he like find anything? The Star was like, no, I don't know. I could be there or there. And it's like, and he was like, yeah. Which is like, if I'm Star, I'm like, I'd be like, why are you asking? It's been a couple days, like obviously Star has been running around trying to find the idol and uncode it, which we didn't get to see a continuation of that storyline besides Thomas talking about it later when Eva's like, yeah, maybe we should like take out one of the puzzle people like Bianca or Thomas because me and you are so strong. Star obviously goes to Thomas and Bianca's like, hey, Eva threw out your name. But also in the same light, it's like, what else? Like, what are you gonna say? Like, you're not voting out Shaheem, you're not voting out Joe. Like, I think if she said either of those two, it would have been like, okay, you're lying to me. So like I could see Eva's point of like throwing them out, but also I don't think they were like necessarily asking for a name. So it was a very unnecessary move at the same time. But at the same time, again, we could see Thomas. And Thomas is like so fun. I am the biggest Thomas fan, if I can be honest. I'm a big fan of Purple Tribe in general. But Thomas is just like, oh, so tasty. He's like that perfect level of villain for me, where we've seen villains in the new era, like I don't know, Q. Q's considered a big villain, but Q didn't like he wasn't the best player, even though he's my goat. But Thomas is obviously playing very well, and he's not like being villainous for the sake of being villainous. I don't think it's more like a strategical kind of villain. I think him just not sharing his advantage is a great thing. I We see the parallel between the purple tribe and the orange tribe, of orange tribe telling everyone everything, and purple tribe having a lot of secrets. And I wonder how that's going to play out. We don't know yet. Um, I mean, who knows? Maybe orange pulls together and knocks out purple. That would be crazy. Very unexpected, but that would be cool. Um, but we see that he's like, yeah, maybe we should like give her the idol, and then we have control, which is where it leaves, goes to immunity. Immunity is pretty fun. I like the blindfold challenge. It's more equitable, I think. Which like it didn't work out like that, but I think like in general, it kind of like stops tribes from like just sweeping, but also at the same line, it's like it's about communication and realistically, them putting Cedric up there instead of like Say is like kind of questionable. You know what I mean? Like that's like her whole thing is barking orders. And like she has like the perfect opportunity to do that. So I don't know what she was thinking. But it turned out to be a pretty fun challenge. Where Joe and David are kind of running around doing a lot of the legwork, with the other two people together, kind of just grabbing what's left. And I do like the implementation of the slide puzzle and making someone blindfold do it and barking orders. But long story short, at the end of the day, Green loses, and we all saw it coming. I think this is a weirder one where like there was an aspect of like you had to like pull ropes really fast and like I don't know, get dunked with water. I don't know. That's not really anything, but at the end of the day, Green just doesn't have the communication, which was established earlier with Mary and Say. But we get a journey. Now this journey I hate. I do not like this journey at all. But I like what happened because of it, but I don't necessarily like it for the players, and the players didn't like it either. Um, where we see that Camilla gets to go, we see that Justin gets to go, and then we get to see that Bianca gets to go. And so they like scurry off, and they don't really like talk. I don't think. I think they just like got there and they're like, just go. And they had to roll dice, which I think is just like so crazy because at the end of the day, Justin goes home essentially to a dice roll. And that's like, I guess, cool, I guess, in concept. But I would rather them have like the choice of them not risking their vote. Because Bianca loses her vote. Um, and that's not good because obviously in that tribe already, like that forces Thomas to be with the men, with the California girls, and essentially have to vote out Star against like probably their wishes. So that basically forced their hand, but also with Camilla, she kind of just told everyone, which I think for her, she was like, I hate to be in a tribe where everyone tells everyone everything. It's like, girl, you don't have to. Like like no one's making you. Don't say anything. But I think I think that was like a pretty good move for the most part. Essentially since Kyle does have a secret idol that they know about, David knows about, I assume Chrissy knows about, but to the whole tribe they probably don't know. And then we get to the big one. We get Justin. Justin's is weird and wild because he like basically immediately gets knocked out, goes back, and we have a lot of strategy and a lot of stuff to go over. So I'll try to be as thorough as I possibly can. But we get a strategy that I think Survivor fans and like what I think a lot of people thought about, Mary does. Like this idea of like just being like, whatever, like I got it. I'm just gonna act like it. Which like really messes with Say. And I think this is probably the closest it's ever gonna work. Cause Say is such an overthinker. She thinks of everything. She actually has a very good strategic mind, even though she has a very poor social game. Well, maybe not. We'll get to that. And we see that like Mary goes off for a swim, is like, hey, I'm just gonna pretend I have the idol. I'm committed to the bit. That's the name of the episode. But we go on to see that like says like she should be like looking, we need evidence. And then Cedric is the one who's like, I don't think she got it. Like, I think we should vote for her. But Say brings up the prospect of splitting the vote. One vote on Mary, one vote on Justin. And Cedric's like, I'm not going to do that. Justin's my day one, all that stuff. Justin comes back and he makes up a lie, which is like a weird enough lie where I'm like, I mean, it could be reasonable. He doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think the idea and the core itself was a good one, where it's you roll dice and you have like question marks, and he's like, one of them could be like camp supplies, and the other one's like something else, which, like, sure. But he was like, yeah, I didn't lose my vote. And I fully understand why. And I think I haven't had like a lot of time to sit down and think about it, but like in my head, if Justin comes back and he tells Cedric, hey, we're voting Mary, all this stuff, eventually switch it to Say, um, in Justin's head, he should be like, well, like, it's probably gonna go Mary. She probably doesn't have the idol. And what are the odds that shot in the dark works? Now we get to tribal. Tribal is just bonkers. Where I think like a majority of the episode is the tribal because like it had a commercial break in it. Like there was so much to talk about. So we just have to like basically go through a lot. So we get to tribal, all four of them. Mary is just sits down. It's just all chipper. And I think Mary and Say is just such an incredible like relationship and frenemies almost, where like they mentioned before that they have a lot of respect for each other, but they just can't work together because like they're too competitive, which I disagree. I don't think it's because they're too competitive. I just don't think they like mesh well, and I don't think they establish trust. And I am harkening back to what Mary said the tribal before. So those two for a majority of the tribal kind of bigger back and forth, where Say's kind of sussing out if she has an idol, kind of not. And this is where like the first big thing of like, did they split the vote? And we go and like going into this, my assumption was that Mary was not going to play her shot in the dark. I thought she would bank on a split and just like try to snipe out Justin or Say. Doesn't do it. Turns out to be a very smart decision because I believe for the first time since Caleb, Mary hit her shot in the dark, which is like like we're going nuts. And we see that Mary like it's like freaking out. Everyone's like, "Oh no." First vote Mary, second vote Mary. We are in such a new area for Survivor where obviously this tribal never happened. This is like the stuff of like theorizing, like Survivor, like going nuts and like going down the rabbit hole of like, oh, what if this happened? That is the scenario happening in real time. Where now Mary's safe, does not have a vote. Justin does not have a vote. And these two gotta vote for someone. Cedric, I don't know why they, well, obviously Cedric's not like the best Survivor player, so I get it, but I don't know how you didn't know like Justin didn't have a vote, you know? Like I can maybe because it was just like two votes, but usually Jeff like I believe does all three. So maybe they thought he was doing something different. I can't really blame him there. But then we go to the tie. First vote, Justin from Say. Second vote, Say from Cedric. We're at another tie, which this is the point where I'm like, Cedric, bro, like you should have known, but like this is crazy, right? Because now we're in like such uncharted territories where if they go to tribal or if they go to a revote again, like what happens? Like I don't know if like too many people like understood what was happening. And like I certainly didn't. And I like oh, hold on, I wrote some notes because like I was watching this and I was like, bro, what in the world? What in the mayhem was happening? Where the tie happens and we we do the revote again. Where I think this is funny in hindsight, but Say goes up there and she's like, Cedric is honestly the worst. Goes there, writes a vote. Second tie, and it happens. Where traditionally, when a tie happens twice, so obviously the first time, first two votes were Mary, did not count. Then we have Say and Justin tie first one. Then we had it again. Say Justin, Say tie. Traditionally in Survivor, we go to rocks. And this is the first time in Survivor history that we have a very different situation where a Final Four, before you before you guys, new school people, there was a vote at Final Four, not fire making, no, none of that. And occasionally you get fire making, and that was the thing. You were just fire making winner stayed. You and that was it. Maybe in like season four, you had the rock draw at four. But here, you're on a tribe. This isn't like the end of the game. You still have a lot of game left to play. And it's like, what's happening? So Jeff explains everything as well. But he also, I should rewind. Sorry. Very excited. Jeff at the first tie explains the methodology of a tie vote, which I'm very glad he explained because it's very confusing and also has a lot of good implications for later. See, whenever someone's tied, the votes cancel out, so it doesn't matter. Like they can only vote for each other, doesn't matter. Except in this case, Justin doesn't have a vote. So he does have a vote, say, so she gets a vote. So she's allowed to vote again and again because he doesn't have one. If he had a vote, they wouldn't have mattered. And we would have kind of cut to the chase with Cedric. But we get to absolute mayhem, where Jeff sits down and explains that this is the first time it's happening in Survivor history. I thought he was going to bring out like a little board and just be like, all right, so first we got like you guys, and at this, and like what would happen normally in a crazy tribal when Jeff has to explain it. But he explains that in this rare event of Mary not having a vote, Justin not having a vote, Say having a tie, so no vote, that Set Cendric is the one who chooses between Say and Justin. And this is crazy because like Cindric is like one of the more interesting peoples to get this one, where he really waffles like the whole time. He's looking like breakfast out there. And he's like craziness. And he's like, okay, my thoughts is that my first connection was with Justin, then with Say. I have to go with my first connection, and I hope you like respect me as a game player for that. And I can't really believe it, but like Say like does super good work, like convincing Cedric to like take her. because she was going home. Like in that moment, I was like, oh well, that's it. But she does really, really, really good work saying like, hey, he didn't tell you about the vote. I told you everything. Got super emotional. I think that was real, obviously. But she did a really good job of explaining that, hey, he lied to you. He's supposed to be your number one. And this is what kind of bothered me, but like Justin did not really fight back. He was just like, yeah, man, like, there's always a spot in Luigi's for you. It's like, Justin, what are you doing? What? This is like $1 million you're fighting for. This is like it. You'll never get the shot again. I guarantee that. And I'm just flabbergasted by the level of relaxedness. Now, I think there's like a point to make that like he maybe a thought that like he had already like gotten it. Like he didn't have to push. But like you gotta push when you see say push. And especially when I couldn't believe this. He was like, I'm gonna do it on one stipulation that these two cut the beef. It's like, what do you mean? What? That doesn't make sense. Because a lot of different things. One, you can flat out say, and then the beef is over. What that's one. Two, you're going to a swap, which like obviously they don't know, but they do know that they mentioned it before. They had to get through two tribals to make the merge, I believe is what they said. And so they're like, so you either know that you're either swapping or you have one more tribal to get through. Okay. So you vote out, say, right? You have Justin marry, who now no longer has a shot in the dark. And Justin's probably the best challenge performer you have. Okay. That's crazy. And the third crazy thing, because Justin was like, oh my gosh, like, no, he didn't even do that. He was just like, man, what, what, what do you mean? Justin, no. What he had like all the traits of being a good Survivor player. Like he was a pizza. Well, I get okay. Pizza doesn't mean anything. He went to Yale. He like runs around a pizza business. Like he has long hair. Probably a stoner. There's a lot of things. I don't know. I don't know if it's stoner. I just assume all pizza makers are. But it's just crazy that he heard that and was just like fighting at that moment. And I think he might have been resolute of what was happening, but Cedric takes same and bye bye Justin. And one of the craziest tribals in the history of Survivor, without any hyperbole. One of the most complex tribals in the history of Survivor. And we're already off to like a very good start of season 48. Obviously, we heard a lot of production loved this season. And I can definitely see why. I had hesitations because they're like, hey, 44 is a really good season. We love it. And we all know my feelings on season 44. But we have seen a lot of craziness so far where the premiere was like, okay, but the Kevin vote was like pretty pretty good. Like just seeing like this tribe have to navigate around itself. And then this tribe, of course, is like so many things going wrong. And I think this was like an all-time tribal. I think this was like about as good as you can get. And let's talk about Justin for a second. I think Justin, he talked about him being dealt a bad hand, and I fully agree. I talked about it last episode. I think he played that round about as good as he could. Like taking out Kevin really put him in a really good position where like if he doesn't lose his vote in this round, like like he's fine. Like Say goes home. But he gets really unfortunate with one going on the journey and two, a journey being purely luck. Three, not having the option of not risking his vote. Like that's three crazy things already. Goes into it, lies. And like I think a lot of discourse will be about like, oh, should he have told Cedric? Should he have not have? I feel like Cedric, like something like Cedric would have told Say. And Say would have recognized that she is screwed and like gone nuts. and I think somehow it would have landed on him. Where in this case, I think he like had it. Like all he had to do is just take that last step of really just talking to Cedric, and he would have gone through that round. He had it. He initially had it, and then lost it, which is even worse. What are you doing? And say, shout out Say, like I think at first we're like, oh, Say's this villain, and she's become way more complicated than that. And she is a villain, but it's more like she's just playing like so hard that it's like villainous. And I really respect her surviving this tribal. She's pure entertainment. Like, I cannot believe it really, because so many things went wrong for Justin, and a few things went right, of course. Where if she split the vote, Justin goes. Justin was already kind of like fighting a little more uphill, but they both were. And her work getting Cedric to like vote out Justin, I couldn't believe it. Especially with like Mary being right there and them like being like, yeah, we gotta squash the beef. It's like I thought y'all were gonna make diss tracks about each other. What is happening? But I feel bad for Justin. Overall, I do think he's a good player in a bad situation. Not a best player. He'd probably like, I don't know. I think like just pure game wise, I think he's like good. He's good. But I think like at the end he really squandered his opportunity of surviving that tribal. But overall, this was an absolute nuts tribal. I am like really shocked that this happened. And I'm really excited for this season. I hope this isn't like the peak of it. Um, but it could be, but that's okay because I think we still have a lot more in store. And next time on Survivor, we see we get a swap, which shout out Caleb for predicting. Shout out my boy Barham or whatever, Sickum. Shout out Baylor. But we see that they're in a tribe swap. Say is in an orange one, so River's on orange. And I think this is pretty common where we saw this in Survivor 45 where they were forced to swap so that like, these people don't get decimated. And I am very excited about this. Tri swaps are always a good thing. It always adds variability and it also stops people from like just steamrolling. And I think this could be a really good opportunity for a lot of players on the bottom. My prediction right now is that Bianca goes home, Chrissy goes home, and like probably Star. Those are three players I can imagine. I do think Say, Mary, and Cedric all make the merge. Which it's just so crazy. I can't believe I live in a world where these three are probably gonna make the merge. But I'm so happy. Go Mary. You know what? If Mary has zero supporters, that means I'm dead because I'm the biggest supporter. And I want her to win. I don't care. I think she'd be a fantastic winner and so funny. But realistically, probably not gonna happen. Shout out California girls. But yes, moving forward, I think that this was an all-time episode. I could not believe how wild it was. Like I I'm just shocked. And wait, one quick little thing. I like the music this episode. The music was very good. And anyways, I really appreciate you guys watching. Sorry Caleb couldn't be here and you had to listen to me. But if you guys like this content and you want to listen to it more, please like and subscribe, comment, ask us any questions, any video ideas. We like absolutely would love to hear you guys out and like share with a friend. We're big Survivor fans and we just want to hear more Survivor takes and hear your guys' opinions on this episode. So, very thankful for y'all and I hope to see y'all again soon. See ya.